Tempest Runner is the latest story set in the High Republic era. An audio drama written by Cavan Scott, it follows the story of Nihil character Lornadie as she is captured by the Jedi and the Republic under a false name. Throughout the story, we jump back and forth to see Lorna's surprising origins all the way up to how she came to be part of the Nihil's leadership. It's about 6 hours long with a full voice cast, music, and sound design. This is the third Star Wars audio drama like this that's been produced in the past few years, and unfortunately I'm struggling to get into them. I'm a much more visual person. Stories and information stick with me far better if I'm watching or reading something. My mind starts to wander when I'm just listening, which is more about me than the actual quality of the story or the production. I know some people get really excited about these audio dramas, and I think Star Wars expanding into more and more kinds of media is fantastic, but I got so much more out of reading the scripts to both Dooku Jedi Lost and Dr. Aphra than I did listening to them, so I'm hoping Tempest Runner gets the same treatment. As for the story itself, this was an interesting one. I liked exploring Lornadie'S history. She definitely has her fans out there, but she isn't someone I've personally latched onto. I wasn't clamoring to know where she came from, how she joined the Nihil, or anything like that, but I found myself more interested in that half of the story. I won't get into details, I'm doing my best to avoid spoilers here, but I see Lorna as a cautionary tale about what can happen if you aren't true to who you are and who you want to be. If you spend your life running around becoming the kind of person everyone else thinks you should be, you'll never be fulfilled. You'll never find a purpose of your own. Like the Jedi often teach, follow your instincts. Lorna never really does that. Sometimes she has no choice, but oftentimes she does. She tries on a bunch of masks that other people keep handing her instead of just being herself and following her own purpose. And that's a pretty cool metaphor for a high-ranking member of the Nihil, since masks are kind of their thing. That said, I think the story did a pretty good job at balancing Lorna's tragic backstory without making her too sympathetic. To quote Tech's recent line, I understand her more, but I definitely don't agree with her. The personal story about Lorna was enjoyable, but I did find myself wishing for more from the bigger picture. Again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers, so no details, but when I compare Lorna at the start of the story to the end, there's not a lot of difference. She certainly changes personally, which is what the story is actually about. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think Tempest Runner will be very quickly summarized in the next book. It kind of feels like a lot of the canon books have up to this point. Books like Tarkin, or Phasma, or Thrawn, or Ahsoka, or Rebel Rising focus on one character's backstory, and those books were more supportive of the films or the shows instead of standing completely on their own, if that makes sense. And when I think about it that way, that's actually pretty cool that the High Republic is getting to that point, where we're not only getting kind of a main story told in the books and comics, but we're also getting supporting stories for characters who warrant it. Lornadie wouldn't have been my first choice, but the idea of getting a Porter Engle prequel story sounds pretty awesome to me. I said this back when Light of the Jedi came out, but I have fully bought into the High Republic era. I love the aesthetic, the heroes, the villains, almost everything about it, so I'm down to give any story a shot. They're not all going to be home runs like Light of the Jedi and The Rising Storm were, but that's not to be expected, and unfortunately audio dramas just don't seem to be my cup of tea. If you really like the character of Lornadie and want to know her story, that is exactly what you'll get here. If you like the audio versions of Dooku Jedi Lost and Dr. Aphra, I bet you'll like the Tempest Runner. In fact, it follows a very similar structure to both of those dramas. Lots of jumping back and forth in time to tell a villainous, or at the very least, anti-hero origin story. If you're into Star Wars audio dramas and you think you'll like this one, check it out on Audible. You can get it for free with an Audible trial by following the link in the description or by visiting www.audibletrial.com/Star Wars Explained. Like I said, it's got a full voice cast, great sound design, music, and I think even some original music for Lorna, which I thought was cool, but I might be wrong about that. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our High Republic and Star Wars coverage, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.